we enlightened our application for Intune with our release. We have support, and we are a first-class citizen within Intune. And so our app is part of the Intune store, which makes configuration a lot easier. We support most of the out-of-the-box mobile app management features. So things like restricting copy and paste and restricting the ability to share data across apps and things like that. So we'll show kind of an end-to-end, creating a group, just kind of the basics on creating app protection policies, and then some of the supported properties, the two supported properties we currently support with Intune. So this is the device management portal. And this is where an Intune admin would come to configure their group, users groups, protection policies, all those type of good things. There are different licenses required for this. This would be locked down to very specific org admin, and they would have to have an Intune license. Let's just jump right in. So I think the first thing you would do normally is create a group, and a group is basically a group of users or devices. So we'll just show a basic group. You can see we've created a whole bunch of groups in the past. Very basic. We'll make a security group. You can also use 365 groups. And then there's a few different options here. We're just going to do assigned users. Owners, we'll just select an owner. We'll just make that. This is basically just selecting users within your tenant owner, and then we'll have a couple members. So normally you'd have an owner of the group, and then you'd have a number of members, and the members themselves could be other groups. You could have cascading groups. And really what this is for, like for a customer, they may have groups of people they would basically within an org, they'd want to segment for different purposes. So if they had like a test group, so if they're rolling out a new version of the application through Intune, they could roll it out in chunks to different users. So they would have like 10% of their overall install base in one group, and then another 30% in another group, and then a group with everyone. And so really to allow them more flexibility to roll out and test things. Because with Intune, you can lock down users' access to the app stores, and then it allows you to control your updates to the apps and things like that. So if we had a new version of FSM coming out, they could roll it out to this sub just to test, because a lot of customers have very unique things within their projects and within their orgs, and it de-risk some of the new rollouts. You can add a group to a group. So that's where you would have your group of like testers, and then testers 2, and then you'd have them both roll up into the overall group, which would be the final production group. Okay, so that's the basics on groups. And then so the next part is we can create protection policies. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but we can just show you the overviews. There's a lot of defaults. We'll just leave. So app protection policies. We will create a new policy for, and then the app protection policies are by device. So we'll just grab an iOS one. So you can have different policies for Android versus iOS. Okay, so there's a few different, they have a nice wizard. They walk you through all these different capabilities of the policy. You can apply this to different, basically, it's a wizard, so there's different options you would select. In this case, we would select it to a specific app, and since we are a first-party app in the store, you have Field Service Mobile here, makes it very easy. And you can also have custom apps. So if you, and I believe here you would have to have your ID bundle. We have a special bundle for Field Service Mobile. So before we were in the store, you could actually add it manually. But now we're there, we are there. So we have Field Service Mobile is now added. And so these are different options for data protection. Again, we won't go too deep in here. Intune has a lot of documentation of what all these different things mean. And they're self-explanatory with some good tool tips and hints. I'm just going to leave them at default, but there's things like allowing third-party keyboards or encrypting data, et cetera, allowing to print data like that. It's really just about protecting your organization's data. And then access requirements. So this is where you can restrict them to, they can only access the app after they enter a PIN or capabilities of the PIN or different levels of access within the PIN. And then other features like that, like work and school account credentials. So you always have to log in. And then some conditional access settings here as well. So things like you script your PIN more than 5 times, you're going to have to reset. And this is where you can assign this policy to your group. So we can just select our group that we just made, test demo group. And then you could also exclude different groups. So if you had groups cascading, rolling up, you could exclude a subset of those groups. And then obviously review and create all the different various settings you had. Create, and then we have a new policy in place. Test demo iOS policy. And then you follow those basically the same steps for Android. There may be a couple slight different configuration differences between iOS and Android. So those are the first two steps, basic steps of creating your group, applying your protection policies for your data, your access, those type of details. So this stuff is kind of generic to all apps within Intune. The unique parts of Intune is actually the app configuration. And right now we support two different settings here. One is setting the username, and then one is setting the default org URL. So we will create a new configuration. So we can select our app. So again, just stick with iOS. And you have a bunch of different options here. And so this is basically what we're doing here is we are registering the app with Device Management Portal. So within Microsoft, I think we're familiar with Device Management Portal. It's basically where you can get our apps that the administrators have provided to you. So I guess the main scenario here is if you have a managed device, you can't access the stores. And so the Device Management Portal is where you can get your apps that aren't on the store. And basically what I just did here is this is associating this app, Field Service Mobile, with the Device Management Portal, and that way that it's available to all of your users as their way to access the application. All right, so that would allow it to show in Device Management Portal. And that would be a prerequisite to setting up the configuration, and you get a nice stats on like who's actually installed it, or how many installs and things like that by device and by user. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating the configuration policy, so we can set the username and password. When I add my targeted apps, you'll see there's three of them because this had been set up in this org before, but I believe this first one is the one we had just set up that would be available in Device Management Portal. So that's the application we'd want to select. Configuration Designer. So basically this is a set of key value pairs that we can set. And the two values that we will set are Intune MAM UPN string. And this is always going to be set to a very specific value. And the second value, which is going to be helpful for our end users, is default org URL. And this way, when you launch the app, as long as it's all registered and part of the Device Management Portal, the customer can set this default org URL for the user, and then they don't have to take the guesswork out, the typos out, and things like that. And then you just put whatever. And yeah, that'll force that URL. But one thing, since this is associated with the Device Management Portal, and the Device Management Portal can be associated with groups, you can if you have like a UAT environment or a test environment, you can force that org URL on those users that are in different environments to further segment and test and roll out updates to the application. So you can assign to all users, and you can, oops, that's excluded, sorry. You can assign to all users, or you can select your groups, and we can just, play this. We can grab our test demo group. Next, review and create. So doing our configuration, create configuration for FSM. This is going to be iOS, and then these are the two configuration things you're including. And then it's applied to your test demo group.